So thank you everyone for joining us. This is the makeup session for the East Coast fairs that were supposed to have happened in January, but that record snowstorm put a halt to those in-person plans. But we're very happy to have everyone here for our virtual event and excited to get started. We're going to talk through a lot of great opportunities for you and give you a chance at the end of the hour to start talking to some of our reps from our amazing member universities in breakout rooms in person so you can ask your own individual questions and learn about your options to go abroad for a degree. To get started, this is what we're looking at tonight. This is our agenda. We're going to get started now with what we call the Beyond Borders presentation. So myself and some of the other AIRR-NA board members are going to talk through kind of the basics of going abroad. For many people in the room tonight, I think this is a new opportunity, something you maybe haven't explored a lot before, haven't thought about, and are kind of seeing if it might be a right fit for you. So we're going to talk through a lot of the basics of going abroad for a degree, talk through what you have to consider, what you have to think about, and hopefully get your mind thinking about what questions you should be asking our reps when you go into the breakout rooms at the end of the presentation. So the presentation will take about a half hour. We have a little bit of time set aside for some general Q&A if there's anything you want to know that's kind of applicable to all international options. If you have a question about the presentation, we'll help walk through that. And then for the rest of the night, from really 7:40 Eastern Time all the way to 8:30 or whenever you're ready to wrap up, we'll have breakout rooms by university where you can go in and talk to our 25 member universities from all over the world that are here to talk to you to help talk about their programs, their courses, life in their country, and what your opportunities are. So to get started, we'll introduce ourselves and who we are. My name is Jim Pearson. I am the Senior Regional Manager for University College Dublin, but I'm also co-president of AIRR-NA. And what is AIRR-NA? It's a short acronym for a very long name, Association of International Regional Representatives in North America. So it's people like me. Everybody in the organization is based locally in North America. I'm not Irish, obviously, even though I work for an Irish institution. I live in Chicago. I've worked for UCD for 11 years, and I'm here to work with North Americans to talk about international options and their opportunities to go abroad. So our 57 member universities with 105 representatives come from universities that represent 14 countries around the world. So we're a diverse group of members. And one of the great benefits to everyone here tonight is that we're all local. So you can call us in without having long distance phone calls. We can come to events, we can meet you at your schools, we can spend time with you in person. We're here as a local resource as you're doing this very big step of going abroad for a degree and exploring this opportunity of what to do after you're done with school or ready to go on to the next step of higher learning. So great opportunities for everyone. And you'll learn from some of our members who are, like I said, a very diverse group. So we have two maps, and you can find this on our website, airna.org, which is linked at the bottom and listed at the bottom of this presentation. You can see a map of where our members are. Wherever you are, there's probably an AIRRNA member that is close to you that can come into your school or that can meet you for coffee after school to talk about their programs, their options, and going abroad as an opportunity. And then where our members are around the world. So on the right side of the slide, you'll see the institution campus locations. And as I said, there are 14 countries represented all across Europe, Canadian institutions, and then opportunities in Australia, New Zealand, and beyond. So they're great options to meet with people from around the world and explore kind of the vast array of opportunities they are when you're looking outside the US for your degree. We have a lot of other resources. We have both students and families and school counselors in the room tonight. And for all those people, we have great opportunities to help you learn more about this. So for our counselors that are looking for opportunities to go abroad and see our campuses in person, we do have a database of our counselor tours and what's available. For our students that are looking, especially if you're a bit younger and looking to explore opportunities before you apply for university, we have a summer programs listing where you can find these opportunities to go abroad to get this experience before you start your college application process. For students that might be later in their senior year or are late in applying and still looking for options to fill out their university options, we have an open applications update we publish every year after the May 1st deadline. So if you're changing your mind in the summer, there might be opportunities for you to go abroad and learn about opportunities that maybe are a little later in the game. We also publish our standardized testing policies because that is a complicated picture we'll talk about in a little bit. And for professionals looking to get into the game, we do have a job board with open positions to help join AIRRNA and do this work of spreading the good news about going abroad for degrees. And then, especially for people that are new, that maybe you have an idea of what you want to study, but you have no idea where or with who, we have this QR code you can scan now, or you can find it linked in the resources page on our website, where you can find all of our members by countries, and then you can see what subjects each institution offers. So if you know you're into marine biology, you can go to James Cook because you'll see that they offer it. If you're really into dance, you can go to Roehampton. You know they have a great opportunity there. So you can find all these options based on what you're interested in because that's probably something you know already or probably have a good idea of.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Carroll. I am the Senior Regional Manager of the Americas for James Cook University in Australia and Singapore. Thank you for joining us this evening. So, a few quick things about why earning your degree abroad. I believe that most, if not all, of the members within our organization have studied abroad or lived abroad in some capacity. So, it's definitely something that we can talk about for a long time. And it's definitely something I encourage you to ask once you break into those breakout rooms about these sorts of opportunities. There's a ton of benefits. We just have a few listed here. The one I personally like to speak to a lot is the personal growth and the academic and social independence that kind of comes from that when you earn a degree abroad. We see in our students, working with them closely, and in general, students that tend to pursue international universities tend to be a little bit more independent, mature, open-minded, curious about the world around them. But to kind of build upon that for 3 or 4 years, the transformation is really quite incredible. You'll obviously learn a lot within your classrooms and from your peers, but just the soft skills gained from being and growing from the uncomfortable and being in a new place, maybe a new language, a new culture, really can enhance not only who you are as a student, but who you are as a person as you navigate, whether it's graduate school or your career after graduation. Many of our countries, too, are in very safe countries. You'll hear kind of us talk a little bit about the Global Peace Index potentially. Ireland is ranked at number 2 on the Global Peace Index currently. New Zealand is number 3. Australia is number 18, I believe. And currently the US is standing around 126, I want to say. So if that is a concern for you and whether you are, curious about whether you're going to be safe going abroad and things like of that nature, most of the countries represented here today, if not all, are currently ranked as some of the safest countries in the world. If we go to the next slide, you'll see. So these are some things to research, and this is going to look a little bit different. I mean, similar to a US based kind of college search process if you are looking at universities within the United States as well. So, of course, ask about finances and scholarships. There are over 700 universities, international universities specifically, on the FAFSA. So, if you are looking to take out federal loans or are looking to do the FAFSA annually, there are 700 of us, international schools specifically, that are on that, and you won't not be able to have that if you would like it. Program duration is definitely something to consider too. If you are looking at a 3-year program as opposed to a 4-year program, what the type of student that goes to those programs might look a little bit different. If you are doing a 3-year program, you are going to have certain courses and academics beneath you, but also you're going to have to know exactly what it is that you do want to study. But it can save you a year's worth of tuition. So definitely something to factor in if you are looking more for like a liberal arts experience or you want a double major or you have a variety of interests and you want the traditional 4-year college experience. We have a variety of options in that realm as well. Campus environment and size, if you want to be in a large international city, take advantage of career opportunities or internships or kind of networking or getting involved in, taking public transit every day or anything like that. We do have some universities in those bigger cities, but we also have some campus style universities as well, maybe in the countryside or have more of that traditional American style of having the campus green and comfort of that as well. Language of instruction and teaching style, all the universities within AIRR-NA do teach in English. So if you do not know another language, that is okay. All of our universities do have instruction in English. But if you are bilingual, trilingual, looking to learn a new language, maybe consider attending a university that isn't in an English-speaking country and learning from that. We also have some small liberal arts schools where it's very hands-on discussion-based learning, some larger public research institutions, maybe you want to be more in a lecture style or get your hands in research, kind of taking into account what type of teaching style you're looking for within your education. And then that kind of leads into the type of institution as well. So how we evaluate applications within the international realm is going to look quite different than a US-based application review process. So this does not take into account, we do have some universities called the American Universities Abroad. They are US accredited institutions, just not within the United States, and they're all unique institutions, but they do follow the US-based process of application review. So they are going to be looking for students through the Common App that are fit to their campus specifically. So it's typically students that have, a variety of interests, want to get involved in classroom-based discussions. They're smaller schools, smaller class sizes. So they're looking at shaping a class and the suitability to the institution itself. Whereas traditional international admissions, so the rest of us that are not those American universities abroad, we are looking for your academic suitability to a program specifically. So it's predominantly merit-based. It's going to be predominantly based off of your GPA, the courses you've taken, maybe some test scores to make sure that you are fit for that academic program that you're specifically applying to itself instead of applying to the university as a whole. So as a result, a lot of those applications are free or inexpensive. They sometimes require an essay or letter of reference. They don't always. And there is no option for early decision or early action applications like you see here in the US.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm the other Amanda, Amanda Lundberg. I'm with the University of Roehampton, London. I'm the regional manager for the Americas and based in Southern California. So still local somewhat. But to continue on this presentation, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about life on campus, how it's similar, how it's different. The main thing is that you're going to have a fantastic time on campus, no matter what you're into, whether you're looking for, specific clubs, activities, volunteering, sport. It is gonna, all of that will be available in some form or another. That's the good news. But it might just look a little bit different. So, for example, sports, very different than here in the US. We have our collegiate sports are kind of unhinged these days. And, they're most universities abroad are not going to have, the same kind of divisions, no NCAA. You still can play competitively. Typically, it's more offered more on a club level, more for fun. Because of that, there's fewer scholarships. So you may find a few scholarships here and there, but there's not going to be any full rides in that way. The other big difference is going to be that we don't have fraternities and sororities abroad, not outside of North America anyway. So if you're looking for a fraternity, sorority, you still want to study abroad, I would say definitely look at UBC, who's here on the call, in Canada. Otherwise, we also have the American College of Greece. If you really want that Greek life, you need to go to Greece. That's going to be your best bet there. And then varying accommodation, which we'll look at now, and what that looks like in different capacities. Next slide, please. Thanks, Jim. So yeah, accommodation will look different whether the university is in a very large city or maybe more rural. But typically, accommodation for students is offered with single occupancy rooms. You can sometimes get your own bathroom, which is really nice. Typically, it's not dorm style, but more apartment style. So you will see that it's a lot more private. It's a lot more independent. We do see you as an adult when you come to study in our countries and our campuses. And we treat you like one. We don't make you share a triple bunk bed. The other biggest difference here is going to be the meal plans themselves. Some of our member institutions do have a way for you to buy into meal plans. Often your room, your floor or flat, as it were, or apartment may have a kitchen facility. So often you have a catered option versus the self-catered option. So typically you can save quite a bit of money if you're cooking for yourself, which is awesome. You also are not required necessarily to stay on campus. This is going to vary. Some of our American universities abroad might require it, but typically you can work with our accommodation offices about on this. It's specifically whether you want to live on campus or not. But we do typically guarantee housing for our first year international students. Granted that you apply by specific accommodation deadlines, but there's lots of great things about living abroad, and housing is just one of them. Some of our supports on campus. So this is also going to look very much like US schools. You'll have a ton of support whether you stay or you go. So things like academic advising, mental health well-being services, disability services, all of these you're going to find on our international campuses as well. it might look a little bit different. But the biggest difference I want to say is that it's a little bit more, the onus is more on the student themselves. So all of this will be presented to you as options, and you'll be able to, to have your mental health and well-being services. But it will be on you to reach out and kind of make use of those services. So that's one big difference. We don't kind of, you know, pull you in for these services if you need them. And then because you're an international student, most of our universities will require you to study on a student visa, everybody but Ireland. So if you don't want to faff with, mess around with visas themselves, you can go to Ireland. But we do have immigration specialists, and lots of us within AIRR-NA have studied abroad ourselves and can kind of help with some basic visa advice. And then, of course, disability services might look a little bit different. One of the biggest differences is that we really want you to talk to us about this early. It's not going to count against you in any way. It's not part of admission in any way. We really just want to make sure that you have the accommodation and the support that you need if you do need these services. So definitely make sure that you let us know about that. And then, of course, international student support, faith-based support. These are very individual, but we will always be able to help you in this regard too. And then finally, employment. We know you're not looking for universities just for the sake of going to university. It's definitely a good investment, money wise, time wise, and you want to be able to find a good job. So, some things just to look forward to when you are studying internationally. First of all, you are able to work part-time while you're studying. So typically, this is up to 20 hours per week while classes are in session, and then full-time outside of that. There's also going to be a lot of opportunity for internships, co-ops, placement programs. These are really common abroad. And what's really great is that this is not free labor. We do pay you as part to do these internships, these co-ops. We want to make sure you have that work experience before you ever graduate. So this is something we can help with too. All of our campuses have robust career services offices that will be able to help after you graduate, yes, because that's really important. But you'll also be able to make use of them while you're still studying. They'll put on a host of events and different services like mock interview workshops. They'll help you with your resume, your CV. They'll bring different businesses on campus within different sectors to come and talk to students about working within that specific industry. So that's another great thing. And then, of course, you're going to be the one that's studying abroad as the international student, but you're going to have extensive global alumni networks as well. So whether you come back to the US, whether you decide to try out a new country, you're going to have loads of people. You're going to meet people from all over the world. So this is going to really expand the opportunities that you have afterwards. And we keep hearing time and time again, not just from word of mouth from the students we work with, but within the news itself, there's lots of articles that come out that say that employers really do want students with this global background, this global experience. So whether you're coming for a short term or for your whole degree, it's going to really make a difference to making you stand out and making you look a little bit more unique when you're looking for jobs. And then, of course, we do help with graduation, kind of after graduation, if you wanted to stay in country for a little bit longer. Most of our countries offer some sort of graduate visa or stay back visa, something like this, where we can help you to stay in the country a little longer if you do want to either study further or just stay to get some work experience. So lots and lots of information throwing at you tonight, but I'm going to pass it back over to Jim.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amanda's. And we'll finish off the presentation with the few slides that are usually the most common questions and some of the biggest myths to bust when you're thinking about international education, and that's cost. I think there are a lot of considerations to think about when you're looking at cost. And looking at these in the next couple slides, these are all excellent questions to talk to individual members about, because just like in the US, every institution has different cost considerations, different tuition, different scholarships. So it's worth exploring what that might look like for you in these breakout rooms when you're talking to our members in just a few minutes. But generally looking abroad, there's some great cost considerations, some real big benefits, and some considerations that you might have to keep in mind as you're making a decision. One of the big benefits of going abroad is there's so many opportunities to do degrees in a shorter amount of time. So program length can be 3 years standard in many of our member institutions. So you can finish a degree a year earlier, which means a year less of tuition and living costs while you're an undergrad, and then spending more time working and getting a full-time pay while you're a young person. So, I mean, there's great opportunities to finish degrees a little bit quicker. And even if you're doing 4-year degrees, there can still be other great opportunities for costs. Something to keep in mind is exchange rate fluctuations. All of our members would charge tuition fees in the local currency, in euros or pounds or Australian dollars or whatever it is. And exchange rates can fluctuate a bit depending on what happens in the world at large. So your tuition could rise or fall year to year or even day to day, depending on how the exchange rate fluctuates. And in some cases, that's a great benefit to you, and sometimes it can be a bit of a pain, but that kind of depends. That's something you do have to keep in mind. The cost of living consideration is another thing, and this is the same thoughts that you might have when you're looking at institutions in the US. Living in the Bay Area would be a lot more expensive than living in a small college town, and living in a large world city like, London would be more expensive than living in a rural area somewhere else around the world. So that cost of living consideration is another thing to keep in mind and to ask individual members about, as they have a lot of information for you. Visa fees and health insurance are two things that kind of cut both ways. Most institutions in most countries require students to have a student visa, and this can involve a cost of, paying up front hundreds to a couple $1,000s to secure your visa. So that can be a larger upfront cost when you're starting in university, but one of the big benefits is going abroad is health insurance tends to be much more affordable than health insurance in the US. So health insurance can be included as part of your visa fees in some countries, or you may purchase health insurance through a private marketplace or a private insurance provider abroad. But for example, insurance for students living in Ireland tends to be around 500 or 600 US dollars per year when you're a student on our basic health plan, which is pretty great compared to insurance costs in the US. So that can be a big savings. And one thing I'll mention for anyone that might be in the room that is a resident or citizen of another country, if you have a European passport or an Australian passport or something, you should talk to our members individually about whether you might qualify for domestic in-country or EU fees as early as possible, because every country and every region has their own rules and regulations around how you qualify for in-country fees. Some can be very generous and some can be very strict, but you shouldn't assume just because you have a passport in another country that you'll get the home country fees when you go there. So that's something to just keep in mind, and that's something that, especially if you're early in the college search process, now's the time to start figuring that out for where you want to go. This map and some of the callouts that we have of costs are the total cost of attendance per year for some US and some international institutions, some private, some public, kind of all over the world. And it's a total cost. It's the sticker price of what it might cost for kind of a general arts, humanities, social sciences degree for a full year of tuition and fees and living costs and everything else that goes in. So the all-in cost for a year. And we put this up not because it's super meaningful as to that's what you'll pay at each of these institutions, because every school has their own scholarships, their own grants, their own financial aid opportunities. But this tends to bust a lot of those myths that people have pretty commonly, that going abroad automatically will be incredibly expensive. And you can see just with the sticker price that it's very comparable to many institutions in the US. You can find very cheap options abroad. You can find expensive options abroad. You can find opportunities that might look expensive, but will actually be much more affordable once you apply and look at the scholarship opportunities they have. So there are great opportunities all over the world, and this is before you even take into account some of the considerations around, shorter degree length or lower cost of living or all those other opportunities you might have going abroad. So this is just to think about and then to explore further as you look at your different college options when you're talking to our members later and when you're exploring colleges throughout the next few years or months or however long you have in your search process. A few last notes on financial aid and scholarship. Most scholarships abroad will be merit-based. That's kind of a change from what you might see in the US, where there's a mix of merit and need-based scholarships. Many schools abroad accept US student loans, plus loans, 529 plans, GI Bills, other external scholarships like through Rotary clubs or something like that. So there are great opportunities to use US federal loans through FAFSA and a lot of other options. You can search online, and there's a link here in the presentation we'll share later this week as we send out our wrap-up message. You can search all international universities accept US federal loans. That can be a helpful starting point when you're looking for institutions abroad. One of the big caveats to all of this financial aid is that Pell Grants and other grant programs do not transfer overseas. So federal government rules prohibit those grants from transferring to institutions outside the US. So it's something to keep in mind as you're looking for options and affordability. There are a lot of other scholarship opportunities, and each of our institutions have great scholarships available for students in different backgrounds, different interests, different courses. So that's definitely something to talk to our members about in the next few minutes. So now we're going to move on to a general Q&A. We have some questions in the chat right now that are getting put in, and some of our members are already answering them. If you have a question about going abroad that is kind of general, thinking about going abroad or some of the information in the presentation, please throw it in the chat, and we're happy to address some of that now as we get ready. As everyone's getting their typing fingers ready and going in to put their questions in the chat, I'm going to explain a little bit about how the breakout rooms will work, and we'll open these in just a few minutes, so there's nothing to do right now. But we have 25 member institutions that are here tonight to talk with all of you from all over the world. All of these members will be in their own breakout room. When I open up the breakout rooms, you'll see a big list of all the universities. You can join any of those breakout rooms, and then you get a chance to talk face to face with some of our members. It'll be just like being in a gym, talking to our members at a table at an in-person college fair, just screen to screen instead of face to face. You're welcome to join a breakout room, ask a question. You can leave the breakout room at any time to come back to the main room and then join a different breakout room. So you're welcome to hop between institution breakout rooms so you can ask questions of all of our members to get that opportunity to talk to a bunch of different people. The breakout rooms will be open until 8:30 Eastern time. So we'll have plenty of time now to be able to talk to a bunch of different members to learn all about your opportunities abroad. And you can see from this list that there's a really diverse opportunity to learn about institutions across the range from different countries, from Australia all the way to Greece, small institutions of student bodies in the hundreds to large institutions in the tens of thousands, institutions in cities and smaller cities and rural areas. There's great opportunities to pop around and learn more about our members, their courses, what they can offer to you. If you are a lot of times using a web client, or if you're joining from your phone, it can be hard to join breakout rooms. If you'd like to join a breakout room, but Zoom won't let you, you can just type in the chat what room you want to join, and I will assign you to that room. So we have some options if it's not working for you, or if you have any other general questions, tech issues, something like that, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll work with you there. So we can pop into some of the questions we've seen coming into the chat. I don't know, Amanda, if you've seen anything we want to answer right away.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
I think one that I can kind of I've been keeping track of some of them, but one we can kind of lump together is about transferability of credit. So we have one question about can you come for a shorter period of time, or what if you want to transfer back to the US? And then we also have the reverse of that, which is where can you attend university in the US and then transfer to an international school overseas? The answer to both of those questions is yes. Our institutions do offer study abroad programs. We have many affiliates within the US that we partner with, of course, for traditional semester abroad, but then students can typically apply for an independent study a semester abroad. Same with credit transfer back to the US. My advice always there is to talk to the institution you're looking to transfer to because that can vary. But you can typically transfer some of those credits depending. And then same with coming to our international universities as well. Again, not all of your credits may transfer. It is a conversation worth asking and inquiring about. Some of our institutions even have like transfer credit like portals on our website where you can type in this institution you attend and see how it's transferred over in the past if you kind of want to get a glance at that. I mean, then even some of our institutions have partnerships with schools in the US where you go there for a year or two and then transfer to our international institution. So the all-encompassing answer to both of those questions is yes, credits can transfer, but you're good. I would recommend reaching out to institutions directly and asking how to do it.
Yeah, amazing. I think a lot of the answer to a lot of questions is it depends. And also, the sooner you ask the question, the better. So don't be shy. Ask these questions if you're thinking about it. If you have this question about credit transferability, that's something to ask tonight or as soon as you can to some of our members. Is there anything else we should address now?
I guess just a general statement that could answer some of this, some of the questions in the chat too, is just, and it goes along with transferring credits, but just the transferability of the degree itself. So all of our universities are fully recognized. In the US, we all have accreditation in our specific countries, but then those degrees are still recognized here in the US.
Mhm.
And that is kind of a testament to our global alumni networks as well. So you'll even if you get your degree, let's say you get your bachelor's degree abroad and then you want to come back for a master's or vice versa, that's definitely still something that's seen as a good thing and is recognized.
Absolutely. Well, there's a question in the chat. Are three-year undergrad programs in engineering recognized in the US? And in most cases, yes, that's certainly something that all of our institutions will be able to confirm to you if you reach out and ask about their specific program and their transferability. And that kind of applies to most professional programs. If you're looking for something like medicine, nursing, law, engineering, social work, all those things can be transferred back to North America, but the process will be a little bit different depending on where you've studied and where you're coming back to practice. So like law, there's a different bar association in every state that governs the applicability of law degrees. So that's the most complicated answer, whereas some are national. So it all varies a little bit. But in most cases, you certainly can. In a lot of cases, you can save a lot of time and money in doing these professional degrees abroad. But it is, again, one of those things you want to check in with member universities earlier.
We also have a question about can you visit international universities before you decide to go? So, yes, our institutions do offer university tours if you do make a trip. I know many of us have students that will be traveling to, Europe over spring break and they're looking to maybe visit some schools while they're over there. You can attend in person. Our institutions typically do offer virtual tours as well. So, if you are not able to make the trip, maybe that's something to check out. Or I always encourage checking out our institution's social media accounts too, and maybe they do student takeovers or kind of showing day in the life too, so you can kind of get a sense of the space and the teaching styles I mentioned previously. And another kind of plague about our summer programs too. So Jim went over this a little bit in the beginning, and it's on our website. If you are looking to get your toes wet and going abroad, but you don't know if you want to go for your full university experience yet, many of our institutions offer summer programs for about, 3 to 6 weeks or maybe a month or two over the summer where you maybe can take a class for credit. Maybe you can audit a class and just take it for fun. Or you can just do a high school specific summer program on our campuses to see what living in another country would be like and maybe the academic structure as well. So, yes, we do offer tours, but there are also other avenues you can pursue as well.
Absolutely.
Another question that I saw a few times, kind of similar questions, are about qualifications themselves. So whether you have APs or IB or SATs, how competitive our schools are. Excuse me. And that is another one of those, it depends. It's going to vary by institution. Like every single institution, even within one country, might have a different set of entry requirements. So that's something you should definitely ask us individually. But just to say that we typically will accept a range of different qualifications. So, and you can see some of our colleagues are answering these specific questions in the chat, which is great. Thank you guys. But I would say in general, it's definitely so sorry, my throat's gone froggy all of a sudden. It's still seen as competitive entry, but what I want to kind of, I guess, drive home is that it's not necessarily the how competitive the schools are, but how transparent we are. So all of our universities are known for different things and have the rankings that you might, have that kind of information that you might want. But what I really love is that we're very, very clear on our entry requirements. So internationally, we tell you exactly what we're going to want from you in terms of entry, just like Amanda said earlier. So when you go to our individual websites, or even when you go to our AIRR-NA website, where you can look at all of our testing information, it is very clear what you need to get in. So in that way, it's you have a better picture. We don't do acceptance rates usually for that reason, but at least you can see exactly what you need in terms of entry requirements themselves.
Another great question to clarify for everyone thinking about where you want to go and then what you want to study. There's a question about whether you can double major or major minor or switch majors if you don't know what you want to do. And that's something that is also answered with it depends. Generally, going abroad, it's much harder to switch majors. You usually have to commit to your subject in your course very early, and it's very hard to move around. It is also usually more difficult to major in two different things, especially if they're in very different areas. Like it's much harder to do a double major in like music and chemistry. Maybe like music and drama will be possible, but that does depend. Each institution has their own kind of breakdown and opportunities to explore majors or to change majors or to double major. But I'd say in most cases, it's usually best for students that know exactly what they want to study and are very passionate about that and are in, or at least very interested in a specific area like the sciences or the arts. And then you might have more flexibility in exploring around that. That isn't the whole story, and it's worth talking to our members. There are some institutions that have undecided degrees. There are some institutions that let you switch majors, that have liberal arts curriculum where you take a lot of different courses before you commit to something. So there's definitely great opportunities out there, but the general answer is it's usually best for students that know what they want to do, or you'd have to have a very clear idea of what you're getting yourself into with each institution.
Yeah, I think the exception there, of course, is the American universities abroad. So the small liberal arts where you can double major or come in undecided, change your major, and what have you in that way. And that also kind of goes with the transferability of credits too, since they are U.S. based institutions, or
Mhm.
U.S. accredited institutions. That's where kind of you see more of the differentiation within our universities.
Mhm. There's a great question about getting an undergrad degree abroad and then maybe returning to the US for a master's, PhD, law school, something like that. And that is definitely possible. This really depends on, what area of study you're in and what you want to study, where you want to go, but you'd be set up for success the same way that you might be getting an undergrad degree from a US institution. But then you have this added benefit, especially if you're going to an institution or in a country system where there are no gen eds, where you're going straight into your courses. You have a much deeper, much more in-depth education in your subject matter at a much earlier stage than you would if you stayed in the US and you do a couple years of gen ed. So that's definitely a help. And then I'd say overall, most people may not have heard of some of the institutions that you see on this slide here because we don't live in these areas. We don't, know all institutions around the world. But faculty members in grad programs and subject areas work internationally all the time and they collaborate on research internationally and they know people and they know institutions around the world at a far deeper level than most people would, so that you might not have heard of an institution, but the faculty member reviewing your application has and knows the reputability of that institution, knows about it, and is much more open to this kind of international cross-border education. So I don't think it's definitely not a detriment, and it can be a huge advantage, especially if you know how to explain what you got out of the experience.
I see that there's another question about summer programs. So we did go over this a little bit earlier, so you'll be able to kind of watch back on the recording. But you definitely can come and visit over the summer, or even a lot of our campuses will institutions will offer summer programs for high school students as well. So you can find all of that on our website.
I did see a question about common application deadlines and things. So, unfortunately, there's no standard application deadline. In a lot of cases, you will apply in the fall of senior year and make a decision or get a result back in, sometime in the winter, spring, and then commit in the spring. So it can follow very similarly the US application deadlines. It's definitely something that each institution would be different. And then I'll let Amanda Carroll speak to the Southern Hemisphere because that's very different than what you might be experiencing if you're applying to an institution in Canada or Europe.
Sorry, Jim, can you please repeat what you just said because I was
Oh,
reading
you
some
just
of
want
the
to
questions.
briefly explain like application and maybe term timelines for the Southern Hemisphere and how they differ from
Mm.
what we're used to, I guess, up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the southern hemisphere is going to be on a different timeline than our hemisphere, the northern hemisphere, due to what time of year it is. So most of the semesters are going to be from February to July, and then July to November, because that right now it is currently summer in Oceania. So that is where it's going to differ a little bit. They are rolling admissions, so typically, whenever you apply, you're hearing back relatively quickly. I will say many of our institutions, James Cook University and Bond University, as well as Griffith University in Australia, who's not here tonight, do offer trimester systems for students. So we do actually offer a fall start date as well. It's trimester three. For students, if you want to stick with more of the North American model of your semesters, but it's just going to be a little bit reversed. So some of our students will do what's called a half gap or a half gap year, and start in January or February after graduating their senior years. That is the start of the school year typically in Oceania, and then you'll be applying for those institutions over the summer. So typically you'll have completed all of your high school as well.
That's great.